Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your video lesson on area of parallelograms, triangles, and trapezoids. So we are going to be finding the area of 3 different types of figures, and you will need your showing work skills hat on and a calculator, most likely. So area is when we're looking for when, just a little vocabulary, you're going to see some words of area, parallelogram, base, height, units, and you're also going to see triangle and trapezoid as well. Area, when we're looking for area, we're looking for the space that is inside of a figure. So everything, if we were going to carpet this space, we would be filling it up on the inside, okay? So area, there's going to be formulas for each one, so you're going to want formulas for each. So I would draw a picture like this in this key concept of the model with different parts labeled and the formula for each. So area of a parallelogram is finding its base times its height. The base is any side of a parallelogram, but it's the side length generally that is the flat one. If we were to turn this on its side, it would kind of look like this. And we would, even though it's on its side, we would probably still call this our base and this our height. It's going to be those parallel sides that lie flat. The height is the length of the segment perpendicular to the base with endpoints on opposite sides. So it's the distance from base to base, essentially. You might recognize that you've dealt with squares and rectangles before. Those are also parallelograms. Those are parallelograms with 90-degree angles. So we're going to try some, and the really important part today is that you show your work. And again, we've emphasized this, and you guys have gotten pretty good at it. So I always first determine what my parts are. I know that my formula for parallelogram is area equals base times height. So to find the area, I need to know my height and my base. So what I do is I always write my formula out, and then I plug in for what I know. So my area is my base, which is 13, times my height, which is 5 8/10. So then I find out that my area is, I multiply those together, 75 4/10. Units here, since notice it was measured in centimeters, and I multiplied centimeters times centimeters, well, that's going to be centimeters squared. Just like when you multiply a number times itself, that's the same as saying that number squared. So area is in square units. So a common error, this is kind of what I was mentioning with base and side. Find the area of a parallelogram, be sure to use the base and the height, not the base and a side length. So here's your base and your height. This is a side length. We'll use that if we were to find the perimeter of the shape, the distance around. So here we are doing area equals base times height. When my base is 11 and my height is 9, notice I just replaced the variables which are known. 11 times 9 is 99, and that is inches squared. So, parallelograms, why don't you try these two? Again, showing your work. So labeling your base and your height. Writing out your formula. The more you write it, the more you're likely you are to remember it. So my base of 10 2/10 times my height of 7. So I'm going to multiply those out. And and you want to estimate maybe, it's approximately 10 times approximately 7. So it's going to be around 70, but a little bit more. So I get 71 4/10 square feet. Next one, try again. Area equals base times height, where my base is 4 and my height is 5 1/4. So my base is 4. My height is 5 1/4. Say I don't have a calculator. I'm going to try this without, just so we practice our skills. To multiply, I need this to be an improper fraction. So that's the same as 21 over 4. And I can write 4 over 1. Can cross cancel. 4 goes into 4 once. So my area is 21 yards squared. If you want to check on a calculator, that's fine. You would just do 4 times 5, which is 20, and 1/4 of 4 would be 1. So 20 plus 1, 21. On to our next shape, 2 of 3. Looking at area of a triangle. Area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. Or you could do area is base times height divided by 2. If you think about it, it makes sense because if you look at a parallelogram, if you were to cut a parallelogram in half, you have 2 triangles. So it's half of the area of a parallelogram. So the base of the triangle could be any of its sides. In this case, we're looking here. The height is the perpendicular distance from the vertex opposite of the base, so straight down. So from base to the top vertex. So let's try this one. So I'm going to label, I need area equals 1/2 base times height, or you could do area equals base times height divided by 2, whatever your preference. My height is 6.5, my base is 10. So my area is half of 10 times 6.5. Area is 5 times 6.5. Notice I'm not just plugging in my calculator. I like to write it out so that if I do make a mistake, it's easier for me to catch. So then I'm going to do 5 times 6.5. So my area is equal to 32.5 square meters. Same thing if I would have done it over here. Couple for you to try, and then we're on to our last shape. So remember, triangles, area is 1/2 base times height, or base times height divided by 2. So determine your height and your base. So I'm going to do 1/2 my base times my height. 1/2 my base of 14 times my height of 11. So 1/2 of 14 is 7. Then times 11. Area is 77 square feet. I'll try the other formula for this one. Notice your height, top vertex down. So sometimes it's going to be measured that way. So that's your height. That's your base. So I'm going to do base times height divided by 2. So my area is my base, 7.5, height of 8, and then divide all that by 2. So order of operations, you're going to do the multiplication on the top first. And you get, oopsie, and you get 60 over 2, so you get an area of 30 square inches. And remember, sometimes these go quickly because you're just following the work and the steps and things. So if ever you find yourself chasing me, make sure you pause and slow down, and you can slow down the sound if you want to, but you're doing what's best for your learning. I'm not trying to drag on the video for anybody. So, last little bit here before the end. Our last shape is a trapezoid. This one can be a little bit more complicated because there's more to it. So, a trapezoid is half of the height times the sum of the bases. So, it's very important that you read this. Area of a trapezoid equals half the product of the height and the sum of the bases. So, base sub 1 and base sub 2 is how those subscripts are read. And this makes sense too if you were to cut this and move it around. It's actually going to look like a parallelogram, which will help you understand how it's combined. And we'll talk more about that in class. So let's try this one together, and then you can try these two on your own. So I write out my formula. Area is 1/2 the height times the sum of the bases. So my height is 7. Base 1 is 5. Base 2 is 12. Sometimes people mix those up or interchange them. It's okay because addition can go in any order. So I plug those in. 1/2 my height of 7. Sum of my bases of 5 and 12. This is where it's really important that you show your work step by step. So then I have 3.5, half of 7, times 17. And again, some of you might have done that in a little bit of different order. That's okay. So 3.5 times 17, we get 59.5, again, square inches. So last two, if you're ready to try them, give them a try, and then you're done for the day. Label your parts. Height, base sub 1, base sub 2. Formula is half the height times the sum of the bases. Plug in what you are given. Height of 4, base 1 plus base 2. Half of the height is 2. Sum of the bases, you're going to add those together. You're going to add 2.5 plus 4 8/10 for 7.3. You're going to multiply that by 2 for 14 6/10 square meters. Last one, again, if you haven't been able to try on your own, try and then come back and check. So again, I usually go my smaller one as base 1. You could always do your top one's base 1 and your bottom one's base 2. That's really up to you, because they can go in any order. So again, I write my formula. Some of you are going to think this gets old, but it's important because you'll remember it. So then I do half my height, which is 0.3, base 1 plus base 2. So then you're going to work this out. And I would do a little bit at a time rather than plugging it into your calculator all at once. So I just do that multiplication first. And then I will multiply again. And I'm going to get not a very large number, as you can tell, because you're multiplying those decimals. And I get 225 thousandths square feet. That happens when you multiply by numbers that are less than 1. So big things, boys and girls, to make sure that you have the 3 formulas written down, and that you know how to show your work and work down, and label your answers. See you soon.